Good morning. Once more, I'm back on air after 2 weeks, which felt like forever. I really missed not being able to be on here 3 times a week, I'll tell you. But anyhow, here I am, and I will be back for the usual times today, which is Wednesdays on 9 for Norma Talks, Sunday at 9 a.m. again for a Sunday thought. And then Monday nights at 7 p.m. for mental mind treatments. So today I'm going to talk about the reading that came up that I did regarding the month of January for North America, because it's not really the world, it's for us in this part of the world. And then we will take a look at goal setting a little bit. Now, the reading, when I put this out, I looked at it. I'm going to put my little picture up again, and so that you can kind of see what's going on here. It begins with the Nine of Swords and the Knight of Swords. Nine and Knight sound quite similar. And this is sadness and overreaction. And already we're at the third. And if you've been kind of following things, there's been a lot of stuff going on actually in the world, but it affects us for sure. That then is followed by the Seven of Pentacles, which I feel leads into the, around the 10th and on. And again, I really feel if you look at all the pentacles that are in this reading, this is a lot about money. All the sorts of things about money. And yes, with the Three of Swords right there, it's disappointment, which brings frustration with the Three of Pentacles. I think what's going to happen from about the 7th, probably the 7th, I said the 10th, but I think about the 7th right through the teens. It's going to be all about money, trying to figure the money, new money dictates coming down, all sorts of things. And even when we get into the second row, which is the Six of Pentacles and the King of Pentacles, here again, we're still talking about money. And some getting it, perhaps being divvied out, and some not. Changes, all sorts of things happening. But the King of Pentacles is like there's some resolution that's going to put it into place. And this is where we're moving into the sort of middle to late 20s of the month. And then it's sort of everything lifts after the King of Pentacles. Excuse me. Everything begins to lift. And the end two symbols, which are the Six of Wands followed by the Knight of Wands, it just sort of shows now we're putting things together. I just think January is going to be an interesting month because it is a flow, but it's not like a great flow. You go, yay, yay. It's about all sorts of things happening and taking place, frustration, uncertainty. And it's like when we get a sort of a plus symbol, what I call a plus symbol, that this looks good, then we're followed by a not so plus symbol, or maybe two symbols. They seem to come in twos. But I do like that at the end of the month, everything seems to open up. Everything, it looks much better. The direction that we're heading in and where we're going. The other thing that is important to me, there's no higher arcana cards in this reading. The higher arcana cards are the spiritual laws that are there. And it's like we've got 1, 2, 3 sword symbols, which are, and that's mostly at the beginning of the month, right up to, I think, about the 10th. Just sort of really trying to figure out. I know the money thing has been coming up in the last few months. Here it is again, people not knowing exactly what's happening, where it's going. And as we know, money can leave your hands very quickly. So I think there is a lot here about how what's being received, what's being put out. The King of Pentacles sitting in the middle of all this, I really like. It's how we handle things, mostly. And because once we move into February, obviously things are going to be a little different in some ways, maybe more clarity, more awareness. But February is coming along, so we'll get to see that next month. Now, again, the money element. We need to be aware of how much money is going out. This is our own pockets. How much is going out? How much have we got coming in? How can we reestablish things? And I know a lot of people are having a tough time right now. And it's like in the area I live in, rents are like way up here. And it's becoming very, very, very difficult for a lot of people. How do you balance all that out when you've got, I don't know how you do it when you've got young children. I really don't. But that's what everybody kind of deals with. So it's always looking for the plan, what plan works. And at the beginning of the year, I like budgeting, things like that. I was never good at budgeting. I know one needed to do it, but it was kind of, I felt always clammed in if I had to really, really, really budget. But I've always been fairly good with money, so that helped. So it's like, where are you going? What are you wanting to do? The wand symbols right at the end of the month really show that there is vision for the future. There's vision for the direction that you're going into. Which leads me, of course, what I wanted to talk about today was goal setting, because I don't know about you, but usually in the 1st of January, I sit down and not only do a reading for myself for the year, which this year looks so much better than what I went through last year, which is great. But it's like, also take a look at my goals. What are my goals? How are my goals shifted? And they have shifted this year based on this last year, where I have, wasn't well, and most of my energy went into the shows and some consultations. But other than that, it was like, everything was pretty painful actually for a while. But that's improving, and I'm improving. So everything's getting back a little bit to normal. So it was really interesting to take a look at what my goals were and how they were working. And in relation to what I see here for the month of January, I think everything fitted really, really well. I'm just incorporating the cards up here that I had in front of me, so we can sort of look at my notes I made. I kind of didn't jot them down probably as easily as I need to. In my newsletter, by the way, I do have a newsletter that goes out every month with usually something I can give to you, and specials for certain things. That's like on this coming Saturday, I have 20-minute readings on specials. So it's like there's all sorts of little things that go on that. You can always subscribe to that through my website, which is just my name.com. So now, even though I'm talking a little late on goals, because hopefully and probably you've all made your goal list already, but I wanted to go over a couple of different points. One of the things I said in the newsletter was mention my book, Secrets for Living Happily, and to reread page 70, which talks about and it's like creating a look at want versus don't want, which helps clarify what you truly want. And interestingly, one of my subscribers wrote back and said, funny enough, I just pulled it out and looked at that. So synchronicity happening out there. So that's really good. Another thing that I work on in the sort of the same time way is, I'm not used to talking so much these last 2 weeks, and look what's happened. Another thing is my first step principle. So if you have a goal, ask yourself, what is the first step? Because very often we don't listen to ourselves. And what I find for a lot of people when they're looking at goal setting, they create the third step. They haven't got the first step in place, and then they wonder why it doesn't work. Goals are an interesting thing. I took a workshop, and I've spoken about this workshop many years ago now, from Mark Victor Hansen, and we're in Lake Louise up in the Rockies, and he mentioned having 100 goals. And I came home, because I was a goal setter, and I sat down to write my goals, and I had 60, and I could not figure out, how do I get to 100? And what I found was I wasn't specific in my goals. I would have something like titles, travel, but didn't say where I wanted to travel to. So I rewent through my goals a second time and realized how often I hadn't put in the subtitles, you might say, the subbits. And so I extended it, and then I had to do it a third time. And then finally I began to learn. Now, I don't sit down and do 100 goals every year now, but I do know take a look at, I have a title and I take a look at all the little different parts that make up in that title. The other thing I want to suggest is think big, because, I needed to have mentioned before that, you need a minimum of 10 goals. The subconscious is big, and basically it works on that for you. But think big, don't be hesitant to go beyond you might say your parameters. Think, oh, well, I want this, but what do I deserve? And a lot of it has to do with deservability. You deserve whatever it is that you allow in. Then the more specific you can be and clear you can be about your goals, it is also very, very important. And that goes down into specifying. One of the things that's come back for me is traveling again, because I haven't been able to do that except to doctor's offices and the wound clinics, fixing my arm and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, okay, I really wanted, I'm a traveler, and I wanted to, where do I travel? So I've made all my friends that I haven't seen. So, because a lot of us live all over the place now. So it's like, yeah, so I write them all down. So don't hesitate to make your list big as if it needs to be big. Then you can clarify it for sure. But the more specific and clear you can be about your goals, better it can be. Then what you can do is you pick your 3 most important goals. And I find what most people make the mistake is they don't decide that it will come into being. See, our minds are very interesting, because when we look at what we want, we'll create all the reasons why that can't come into being. It's too big. How is it going to happen? We want to figure out how it's going to happen. That's not our job. Our job is to say, this is what I want. But it's got to be the end result. That's the other thing I find. A lot of people make their steps the goal, not the end result. You want the end result. What is it that you want? And so it's like knowing that, and you decide and know in your body, you know, it will be. You may not know the timing of it. I find a lot of people, when they're writing about goals, I put a time on it. I hated that, because I felt under pressure when I said time. I just know the right timing will be, because the universe knows better than me what that timing needs to be. I just know this is what I learned in my life now. And I've created some miracles have happened around me because of things that I've wanted. And it's like, whether you call it your subconscious, whether you call it help from the other side, doesn't matter. It still works the same way. So your decision point is important. Do you really want this? And in a way, and then you need to be, and that's why I like sometimes to, have a minimum, you have your big goal sheet. And then out of that, you take maybe your top 10. But then you take your top 3. What is it you really want to have happening? You must then become aware of your thinking around the goals. You must see the end result you want. Not the steps, not how it's going to happen, but where you want to end up. Remember, thinking is like praying. The thought goes out to create your vibrational rate. So it's like what you put out is going to come back. So if you put out, your thinking is like, oh, I don't know. Do I deserve this? How is it? And a lot of people think about, well, how is it going to happen? It's not your business. That's the universe's business to figure that out. How? Because miracles happen. That's what's happened to me a few times. I'll tell you, and stuck in places. That's why I can teach this, because it's happened to me. I'm a person that only talks about things that I know work. Now, you've got to watch out for your own negative thinking. And that's why I practice quite often is sitting back and watching my thoughts go across my conscious mind. I think of the subconscious, and I've spoken about this a lot if you've listened to a lot of these, about the whole thing that goes around down in your subconscious, and how we want those thoughts moving a little bit and not stuck. When we become obsessive, that makes things very, very difficult. But it's like it jumps off. So we've got this Ferris wheel going around. I have a great way of teaching it in class, but it's like they can jump off and on the seats of your thinking process, but you want to be able to observe them long enough to recognize where unwanted thoughts are. Unwanted thoughts are the ones that don't believe, that doubt. Doubt. Doubt's huge against what you're wanting and what you're wanting to create. That is totally something that's going to bunk everything out. So it's like you take a little time, you watch the thoughts go right by and become aware of your thinking pattern, because that's your vibration. What's that vibration? Does it see you achieving? And does it question? Is it uncertain? Does it, it's like, where does it fit in? Now, when I have clients, very often this one of the first thing we're working on doing is getting the thinking working for them. And I use a thing called FER, F-E-R. When you have a thought in your consciousness that you don't want, it does not fit your goals, it does not fit how you want to be as a person, the first thing you do is you freeze it. That's like taking a picture of it. Snap. You freeze it in time and place right in front of your mind. Then you erase it. Scrub it out. Don't want that thought. And then the key, which often is forgotten, is you must replace it with the end result that you want. Remember that. It's not up to you to figure out how to get there. It's up for you to know you will be there. And so it's like you see that. You freeze, evaporate, replace. FER. Just that's all you have to think about. In this way, you're continuously telling the subconscious, I don't want that thought. I want this one. The subconscious job, and it's big and it can work, is to work for your effect of what you want. There's a lot of things I write in my little book that I wrote years and years ago called, let me just think, Secrets for Living Happily. And if you wanted a copy of that, all you have to do is email me, and I'm quite willing to send you a copy that you can download. Now, the other thing I do a lot of is what I call the first step principle. And you can do this with yourself. This is one thing you can ask yourself. When you have a goal, and very often every year we create new goals because things happen. If you're having the same goals that you had 10 years ago, goodness me, what's going on? So it's like you have a new goal. So you ask yourself, what's my first step? Because you want to get something rolling. You want to get the energy moving. And then you listen. What is the first step? What I find very often, people begin with their third step or something. They miss the first step. And sometimes the first step is just deciding, yes, this is what I want in my life. Yes, this is what's going to happen. It's also overcoming fears about maybe putting yourself out, going and doing something new. My son was visiting me for a few days, and he was determined that I'm going to get back more active. Well, before he left, I had signed up for chair yoga, which I used to do before the lockdowns happened. And he wanted me to start a little earlier. And luckily, there was really no space for that. But I knew that wouldn't work very well for me because one knee is still, I hurt my knee over my break. And I knew that doing the chair yoga, which is a lot of knee work, that would not be so good. So I'm starting in March. So that's taken. And he was very happy then. He got mom's going to do something that's movement wise. And I agree with him, but it wasn't quite on my agenda, wasn't quite on his agenda. So anyway, it's like, listen to yourself. You know where you're at. You know what's important, where you want to go. And you want to start with the first step. And sometimes that's picking up the phone. And sometimes that's the hardest one. That's the hardest one, is to pick up the phone and ask or talk to somebody that maybe you've got to resolve something with or make things easier, all of those things. So it's like very often it's like, what is that first step? And just allowing that. But then let the magic take place. Let it unfold as to whatever it was. So what are some of the other major things is let go of controlling it. Not your job. Your job is to know the vision of the end result, not the steps, not how it's going to happen, the end result. This means having trust and faith. And what happens with trust and faith? It builds up in time. When the first time you succeed, and then the second time you succeed, or the third time it succeeds, then you begin to start having trust and faith. So begin with trust and faith right at the very, very, very beginning. Of course, too, mental mind treatments, which is every Monday night at 7 p.m., that can help clear some of the energies away, or have us have clarity. And just remember that. That's where it's designed. That's what I work with people, and know it is. Now, the other last thing is this knowing place. I sometimes have talked about, I don't know if I've talked it too much about here, but there's a knowing place. And basically it says know and it will be. And that's because knowing is believing. When you know something will be in reality, you don't know how, you don't know when, but you know it will be. That makes a huge place. The majority of people I find live in hope and maybe and perhaps. Just think about that. Oh, I hope this happens. Maybe that will happen. Perhaps this will happen. Don't work. If you want something in your life that's going to work, you've got to know that it'll be there. Unfortunately, we're human. And what happens is these little thoughts come in there. It hasn't happened yet. And why isn't it here? And very often we are not looking at where we block. I know I've done it. I've blocked at times because I didn't really believe. I thought that would be nice. But what I found is if I was clear of what I wanted to have happen and let go, sort of sat back, what began to happen happened. The miracles happened. The different things happened. Came out of nowhere sometimes. Someday I'll talk about some of those miracles that have happened. So it's really important. And I'm just going to show you the copy of my little, oh, I had it right here. Now, where did it disappear to? I don't know what I did with it. Just guess it doesn't want to show. Oh, it's over here. Excuse me for turning sort of my back. This was the little book that I wrote, Secrets for Living Happily, that came about because I had written already 2 tarot books. I've now written 3, but I'd written 2 and I wanted the information to get out on what I had learned through my tarot learning. And so I wrote this little booklet called Secrets for Living Happily. And they are kind of secrets. And there's lots of little bits and pieces in here. And as I say, I'm quite willing to send a PDF copy out if people want. I quite often will just say on my newsletter. Again, the newsletter becomes really important. But it has a lot of things about how to make things happen in there. Without the tarot symbology, without what I learned from the tarot. Now that I'm back in doing the 3 things, and I still haven't got my mouth in my head aligned, obviously, but I certainly am hoping to be able to also begin to do some workshops soon. My energy is much better. Now I'm just got to make sure I don't overdo it, but it is good. I also want to thank those of you that have sent comments over the last few months. They touch me very, very deeply, and I appreciate them. And I want to thank you for the comments that come in. And for those of you that are attending and listening to the different talks that I do. And on that note, I'm just going to wish you well. And if you have any questions about creating, you can always email me, let me know, and or make a comment, and I'll definitely answer them. Maybe not right away, because sometimes we've got lots of little different things happening here, but I will. And in the meantime, I'll be back on Sunday, and then again next Monday, and we're back into routine. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I trust it'll help. And before I leave, I just want to say hi to my friend Marie, who says, hi, Norma, on the chat line here. Wishing you well. Oh, and now Karma Control. Hi, says, hi, Norma. This was great. Love the tips on goals. I I'm interested in your book. Well, if you're interested in the book, you'll need to email me your email address so I can get that on. You can get that through my website, normacowie.com. Appreciate every one of you. I look forward as we go. Marianne says, great talk. And, she's Karma Control says, what is the email? My name, normacowie.com, with the other stuff in front of it, www. And there is a page in there where you can order, and you can order the subscription. You can make a note to me, and I'll definitely get the book out to you. That's what I do. I like to give it away. Then thank you very much for everybody. Have a great week. I'll talk to you Sunday. Bye now.